She strode onto the stage with a wild wig, a painted grin, and that trademark cackle, lighting up club after club, winning laughs by the fistful. Yet behind Phyllis Diller's boisterous persona lay a secret battle she fought in silence for decades. While millions roared at her self-deprecating barbs about bad cooking and wobbly legs, she was hiding the kind of pain no punchline could soothe. A deep and persistent struggle with clinical depression and crippling anxiety that threatened to swallow her entire world. This isn't the Phyllis everyone thinks they know. Tonight, we peel back the layers of latex wigs and satin gowns to reveal the hidden truth Phyllis Diller carried in her heart, and how laughter became both her shield and her battleground. Born Phyllis Ada Driver in Lima, Ohio, in 1917, she was no stranger to adversity. Her mother died when she was just a toddler, and her father, overwhelmed with grief, retreated into long silences. Phyllis grew up in foster homes and boarding houses, learning early that security was fragile and affection could vanish overnight. She adopted humor as lifeline, crafting jokes to charm teachers, deflect bullies, and keep the darkness at bay. Yet when she married carpenter Sherwood Pete Diller at 21 and welcomed 6 children over the next decade, the weight of new responsibilities deepened her anxieties. The castrating crinoline of domesticity left her restless. Endless rows of dinner times and grocery lists felt suffocating. She coped with nervous energy and relentless self-doubt, yet never spoke these fears out loud. Instead, she turned her uneasy restlessness into biting quips. "I eat like a bird. I just have a long neck," she joked, all while her mind raced like a runaway train. By the mid-1950s, Phyllis was dividing her days between PTA meetings and Pilates with neighborhood moms. Then in 1955, she walked into a San Francisco nightclub on a dare, and the audience roared. It was as if she'd discovered a hidden superpower. Her shambling stage walk, manic shriek, and savage one-liners broke new ground for female comics and ignited something deeper within her. In those spotlight minutes, her anxieties melted away. The churning thoughts stilled. She was no longer a frazzled housewife, but a force of nature commanding waves of laughter. Comedy became her therapy, the stage her sanctuary. But once the lights dimmed, the old shadows returned with a vengeance. After her breakthrough Broadway gig in 1959, Phyllis exploded into household fame. Television specials, nightclub residencies, and sold-out tours followed. The Dillers traded their modest Marin County bungalow for a sprawling Beverly Hills estate with servants, chefs, and a closet full of noisy dresses. Yet as her bank account swelled, so did the pressure to remain the unstoppable, funniest woman in the world. She felt she had to keep the jokes coming, night after night, or risk exposing a chasm of despair beneath her glittering veneer. She kept a meticulously edited calendar of appearances, fearing the silence of an empty evening would trigger the panic that lurked behind every reflection of her own face. In private letters to close friends, letters only uncovered decades after her death, Phyllis called herself a clown in a gilded cage. She confessed to dizzying lows, mornings when she could barely peel herself from the bed, her mind clouded with a nameless dread. She described nights of insomnia filled with trembling and tears, only finding relief by scribbling fresh material in a spiral notebook until exhaustion overtook her. "If they can't laugh, I'll give them something to cry about," she once scrawled in mock bravado. But beneath the humor lay the raw truth. She was using her career to mask a crippling depression she feared would destroy her if ever laid bare. Yet she kept this hidden from the cameras, the press, and even many of her closest colleagues. Her glamorous public image, outrageous costumes, over-the-top jewelry, and a booming voice served as an impenetrable fortress. Industry insiders recall arriving on set to find Phyllis cracking jokes back to back, then slipping away to rest in her dressing room with the door firmly locked, tears falling onto sequined gowns. Anxiety would squeeze her throat when she thought of the next gig. Agoraphobic episodes kept her hiding in hotels before tapings, convinced the world outside was too unpredictable to face. But she never canceled, never missed a show. Instead, she swallowed pills, practiced breathing exercises in her car, and reached for her emergency script of relentless humor. Remarkably, she maintained this delicate balancing act for more than 4 decades. up until her retirement in 1995. Near the end, friends noticed she was more fragile, a tremor in her voice and a glimmer of genuine fear when the spotlight beckoned one last time. But even then, she refused to let the secret slip. On camera, she remained the same fearless comic warrior. Off camera, she was quietly seeing therapists, taking antidepressants long before they became widely discussed, and confiding in a small circle of confidants who guarded her vulnerability like a sacred trust. In the decades since her passing in 2012, scholars and fans have scrambled to reconcile the image of unrelenting laughter with the reality of her private anguish. Archives of her personal diaries reveal how she charted her moods, noted the precise triggers of her panic attacks, and then turned those observations into comedic gold. When she joked about her messy kitchen or her unstable marriage, she was not just poking fun. She was exorcising the ghosts of personal failures. Her comedy was both autobiography and armor. Each laugh built a bulwark against despair. Tonight, we'll trace the untold chapters of Phyllis Diller's hidden battle. We'll see how she navigated a male-dominated comedy world while managing the dark secret she kept locked away. We'll explore the treatment she pursued in private, the friendships that sustained her, and the legacy she left behind, not just as a trailblazing comic, but as a survivor who harnessed laughter to outwit her own inner demons. Because in the end, the greatest secret Phyllis Diller kept from her fans wasn't a celebrity scandal. It was the truth that behind every river of laughter she generated lay a fragile soul wrestling for each breath of joy. She carried her secret into every dressing room, every limo ride between clubs, and every star-studded party where she'd laugh so hard that the tears in her eyes looked like highlights beneath her heavy makeup. In Hollywood's golden age, nobody whispered about depression. They simply called it melancholy or nerves. Phyllis learned this language early, keeping a black journal locked in her nightstand, its pages filled with coded entries about spiraling thoughts and electric jolts of panic. She wrote things like, "Blue wave hit me at 3 a.m., or voices rattling behind the laughter, and then scrawled beneath each note a quick gag she'd used to diffuse the tension. Why did the chicken cross the stage? To run away from my past. Only she read those lines when the world slept. By 1962, as her career surged, she hired her first private therapist, a woman famed in Beverly Hills rumor circles as Dr. Secrets. Their sessions took place in a discreet bungalow on Sunset Boulevard, where Phyllis would arrive in oversized sunglasses and a trench coat, hoping no photographer recognized her trembling hands. Behind closed doors, she shed her comic armor and spoke of restless nights counting decorative doilies in hotel rooms, of palpitations triggered by the thought of entering a crowded club, of waking up certain she'd never write another joke again. Dr. Secrets prescribed early antidepressants, barbiturates, and meprobamate, long before such treatments were discussed in polite company. Phyllis swallowed them like communion wafers, praying they'd hush the storm inside so she could return to the stage, her laughter trading places with trembling. Yet the pills came with their own betrayals. Mornings when the world felt as if she'd mopped her brain with sponges, of memory gaps big enough to swallow punchlines, and of dizziness that turned every dressing room mirror into an enemy. She experimented with dosage, hiding uneven pill bottles in cosmetic pouches and labeling them with lipstick smears she thought no one would decipher. At times she cut back, convinced she could ride out the lows on sheer willpower. Other nights, she took too many, collapsing onto benches outside the venue and drifting between flashbacks of childhood betrayals and line readings she feared she'd never recall. When concert promoters threatened to replace her with fresher talent, she'd emerge on stage with a forced cackle, smile pasted like Elmer's glue, and fling self-deprecating jokes like life preservers to clutch. Her closest confidants in showbiz formed a secret ring of care. Bob Hope once invited her backstage after a joint benefit show, wrapping her in a bear hug and whispering that he'd had his own dark nights. Lucille Ball, despite her own busy schedule, checked in with handwritten notes of encouragement and perky cornbread muffins delivered by courier. These gestures meant more than any award. They reminded Phyllis she wasn't alone. Still, she kept the true depth of her struggle hidden, even from her first husband, Sherwood Diller, whose exasperated questions about her constant fatigue she deflected with wisecracks about demanding 6 kids and unruly hairstyles. In her mind, marital loyalty meant shielding loved ones from the truth, even as isolation deepened. She became adept at compartmentalization. Mornings belonged to appointments, therapy, salon, wardrobe fittings, where she rehearsed jokes and polished wigs. Afternoons were reserved for interviews or script readings, where she unleashed the disciplined precision that made her one of the few women writing her own material. Then evenings stretched into marathon performances across Las Vegas lounges or television soundstages. Between sets, she'd retreat to a backstage corner and perform an inner ritual: 2 deep breaths, 3 blinks, and a mental recitation of her favorite affirmation, "I'm louder than the darkness," before bounding back into spotlight. Despite the grueling schedule, she tracked every high and low with methodical precision. One side of a ledger listed show dates, audience sizes, and punchline delivery speeds. The other recorded sleep hours, pill dosages, anxiety scales from 1 to 10, and the number of nightmares that interrupted each night. At first, the numbers were random scribbles. Over time, patterns emerged. She noticed that extended stays in unfamiliar cities spiked her panic by 30%, that certain costume fabrics triggered skin sensations linked to anxiety episodes, and that a single day off sometimes sparked deeper depression than a week on the road. By mapping these correlations, she crafted coping strategies, stashing lavender sachets in hotel rooms to soothe panic, packing only one carry-on bag to reduce decision fatigue, and scheduling early morning dental appointments to work through adrenaline surges methodically. As the 1970s dawned, she added group therapy to her arsenal, joining weekly sessions with other entertainers struggling in silence. Moderated by Dr. Secrets and her associates, these gatherings took place in a discreet Hollywood Hills conference room. On nights when the montage of glamour felt like a brittle facade, Phyllis listened as fellow comics, actors, and dancers shared confessions of self-medication, fear of obsolescence, and the weight of being a public persona. Sometimes she spoke, revealing in vague terms the black dog that haunted her, disguising the clinical term to keep prying ears at bay. Other times, she simply nodded, grateful to feel part of something larger than her individual burden. Those meetings became an emotional anchor, a reminder that laughter could unite rather than isolate, even offstage. The therapies evolved as she aged. In the 1980s, she experimented with biofeedback machines, learning to monitor her heart rate and muscle tension in real time. She discovered that a simple jaw relaxation exercise cut panic episodes by half. At home, she installed a sound system to play calming ocean waves whenever her threshold hit, a high never-to-exceed decibel for her stress levels. Her dressing rooms came equipped with blackout curtains and Himalayan salt lamps, chosen for their warming glow and reputed mood-lifting properties. Each adjustment was an act of self-preservation, a far-sighted investment in longevity of career and the fragile peace she'd won through years of secret battles. Yet despite her arsenal of treatments, no intervention matched the immediate adrenaline cure of stepping onto stage. The microphone became a talisman. Each spotlight hit reconfigured her inner chemistry, scattering the dark particles hiding in her mind. She spoke of the paradox in her diary, jokes as both salve and scourge, but the truth remained. The world needed her laughter more than she ever needed their applause. And for decades, she delivered, hiding her hidden fight in plain sight behind the jasmine smell of her signature perfume and the thunderous humor she had mastered to survive. By the turn of the 1990s, Phyllis's brand of fearless, self-deprecating comedy had earned her dozens of television specials, a best-selling memoir, and a reputation as one of America's most beloved eccentrics. Yet at the same moment her public star shone brightest, she felt the hidden darkness crowning inside her deepest corners. The high-octane pace of late-night talk show appearances and Las Vegas residencies meant relentless travel, and her carefully honed coping strategies began to fray. She no longer scribbled mood logs by candlelight. Her journal had moved to digital files locked behind a password only she knew. In those encrypted entries, she cataloged the growing weight of expectation, how each round of applause now carried an echo of dread, how each backstage mirror turned into a threat instead of a reflection. Her final turning point came in 1994 when a near-fatal parlor performance left her collapsed in a limousine outside a Beverly Hills club. She had insisted on finishing the set despite vertigo and vomiting, convinced that any cancellation would mean failure. Paramedics found her almost unconscious and rushed her to a private hospital, where evaluations revealed dangerously high panic levels and untreated depression. The incident triggered an ultimatum from her inner circle: either seek radical help and speak the truth, or watch the career she loved slip away under the weight of unspoken illness. Phyllis chose the former. She agreed to a live on-the-record special for HBO titled Behind the Laughter, in which, for the first time, she confronted her hidden battle. That 2-hour broadcast blended stand-up footage with intimate interviews and raw glimpses of her therapy sessions, and it shifted the national conversation on mental health. When Behind the Laughter aired, viewers witnessed an unguarded Phyllis Diller, recounting the terror that had coiled inside her for decades. She described nights awake praying for release, days of trembling before curtain calls, and a sense of shame so severe she had refused to tell her own children. Yet she also spoke of the power of laughter to save her life, how the catharsis of a well-timed punchline could break the cycle of panic, if only momentarily. Critics hailed the special as groundbreaking. Never before had a comedian of her stature peeled back the sparkle to reveal the scars. Mental health advocates reported unprecedented calls to helplines, and newspapers ran front-page editorials praising her courage. In the wake of that special, depression was no longer whispered about in private. It became a subject of national importance. Emboldened by the reception, Phyllis launched the Smile and Soar Foundation, dedicating proceeds from her memoir and live tours to support mental health research and community programs for artists in crisis. She partnered with psychologists to create Laugh Lines, a support group for performers who felt trapped by their public personas. In community centers across Los Angeles, former stand-up comics and drama students gathered for weekly meetings where they shared notebooks, fear, and humor. Phyllis often phoned in from her quiet Malibu home, offering encouragement in her signature cackle and reminding participants that vulnerability could be the greatest strength on any stage. She continued touring, but with a new agenda. On stage, she dropped some of her old one-liners about cooking disasters and creaky knees in favor of observations on human resilience and the silent pain behind every grin. She invited audience members to share their own stories, and those moments resonated most deeply. Fans reported feeling liberated to seek therapy, to speak up about their own struggles, and to reframe their laughter as a form of self-care. In interviews, she often ended by saying, "If you're laughing, you're still breathing," transforming a flippant tagline into a profound mantra. By the late 1990s, she expanded her platform nationally, hosting televised fundraisers that combined stand-up routines with panel discussions featuring psychiatrists, social workers, and fellow artists. These events premiered at primetime slots, underscoring the shift in public appetite for honest dialogue about mental health. She even dedicated a recurring segment on her own cable series to audience members who had conquered their own blue waves, shining a spotlight on personal victories and normalizing the conversation. Her final public appearance came in 2001 at a gala honoring comedians in Washington, D.C. Clad in a glittering gown of lavender sequins, she took the stage with hands steady and voice warm, delivering a tribute to those who had supported her in both laughter and tears. As she closed with one of her signature mantras, "We all wear masks, but sometimes it's brave to take them off and let someone see the real you." The audience rose to its feet. In that moment, the secret she had carried for so long felt transformed, no longer a burden, but a beacon for others still holding on to silent battles of their own. In her last decade, Phyllis devoted herself to advocacy. She visited VA hospitals to entertain veterans battling PTSD, hosting workshops on humor as therapy. She launched Open Mic for Open Minds, a monthly showcase where emerging comics recounted personal struggles alongside their routines. Her instructional videos on mindfulness for entertainers illustrated breathing exercises and comedic writing as coping tools. These initiatives reinforced the marriage of craft and care that defined her life. In 2012, at age 95, Phyllis Diller passed quietly in her sleep, a peaceful contrast to the turmoil she had conquered time and again. Obituaries celebrated her pioneering role for women in comedy, yet many also highlighted the second legacy she had forged, destigmatizing depression and anxiety in the public eye. Posthumously, her diaries were donated to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History under restricted access. Researchers note that her entries offer a rare window into the mind of an artist balancing fame with mental health management, providing invaluable insight for historians and psychologists alike. But perhaps her most enduring testament lives on in the thousands of letters sent to the Smile and Soar Foundation. Testimonies from individuals who found courage to seek help because they saw themselves in Phyllis's story. Annual galas for the foundation feature comedic performances, panels on mental health care, and screenings of Behind the Laughter. These events keep her truth in motion, reminding every attendee that behind the biggest smiles there can lurk hidden sorrow, and that talking, laughing, and caring can lighten even the darkest heart. Even now, more than a decade after her passing, Phyllis Diller's hidden battle resonates in unexpected ways. In comedy clubs from Los Angeles to London, younger comics carry her memory on their sleeves, literally, in the form of t-shirts reading, "Laugh your way through the dark," a refrain Phyllis coined late in life. They speak of her not simply as the trailblazing punchline machine of the 1960s, but as the woman who taught them that vulnerability need not contradict humor. At open mic nights, performers dedicate sets to her legacy, sharing stories of personal struggles before launching into self-deprecating routines. In this way, her secret pain became a catalyst for a new generation redefining authenticity on stage. Academic circles have also embraced her narrative. Media studies programs at universities in Ohio and California include modules on Diller's diaries, dissecting how her coded journal entries evolved into public material. Psychology departments analyze her therapeutic regimens alongside her creative processes, illustrating pioneers' roles in blending art and mental health care. Conferences on humor as healing routinely feature panels titled Phyllis Diller and the Alchemy of Laughter, where experts debate how her public reveal in Behind the Laughter shifted societal attitudes toward depression. Graduate theses compare her work to modern comedians who openly discuss anxiety, arguing that without Phyllis's breakthrough, today's candid stand-up landscape might look very different. Libraries and archives hold renewed interest in her private papers. The Smithsonian Restricted Access Collection has become a pilgrimage site for historians and therapists alike, who pore over her mood charts and backstage letters to trace the anatomy of a comedic mind under siege. Digital humanities scholars have even launched projects to encode her diary entries into interactive timelines, mapping fluctuations in emotional state against career milestones. What emerges is a portrait of resilience textured with recurring troughs of despair, underscoring the intricate choreography required to sustain a public persona while battling an inner void. On television, new documentaries revisit her story with fresh perspectives. Last year, a BBC feature titled Phyllis Diller, The Woman Behind the Wig, combined rare home movie footage with interviews of her children, therapists, and comic peers. Viewers heard voices they'd never known, her own, on tape, describing panic attacks in hushed tones. Lucille Ball, recalling late-night phone calls of desperate laughter, and modern comics like Tig Notaro, crediting Phyllis for showing that humor and heartbreak could coexist. Streaming platforms now host these documentaries alongside her classic stand-up specials, inviting audiences to experience the arc from her early bravado to her candid confessions on HBO. In popular culture, Phyllis's influence surfaces in everyday conversations about mental health. Late-night hosts reference her cackle as an antidote to doom scrolling. Mental wellness apps use her catchphrase, "Laugh your way through the dark," as a prompt for guided meditations. Wellness retreats feature Diller sessions, where participants craft humor journals modeled on her methodical mood logs. Social media challenges invite users to post a daily joke beside an honest confession, echoing the spirit of her backstage notebooks. Each instance reminds us that her secret struggle, once hidden behind layers of sequins and makeup, now fuels a broader movement toward emotional openness. Philanthropy under her name continues to thrive as well. The Smile and Soar Foundation's annual gala, originally hosted in a cramped Beverly Hills showroom, now spans multiple cities, raising millions for mental health initiatives and free comedy workshops. Recipients include veterans coping with PTSD, survivors of domestic abuse seeking creative outlets, and adolescents navigating social media pressures. Each beneficiary's story, shared in brief video profiles, circles back to Phyllis's own journey, proof that the laughter she once wielded as defense has become enduring medicine for countless others. Commercial ventures pay homage, too. A jewelry line inspired by her flamboyant stage persona features helmet-shaped earrings encrusted with tiny crystals, nicknamed Diller's Diamonds, with a portion of proceeds funding art therapy programs. A record label reissues her vintage comedy albums in collectible vinyl editions, complete with annotations on the inner sleeves drawn from her therapy notes. And theaters mount biographical plays. Two recent productions titled Phyllis Unmasked and Cackle and Tears have toured regional circuits, blending scenes from her life with archival audio to transport audiences into her dual worlds of spectacle and solitude. Even the tech industry acknowledges her forward-thinking approach. An interactive app called Phyllis's Punchlines combines AI-driven mood tracking with personalized joke prompts, encouraging users to craft quips that mirror her pattern of turning distress into humor. Wellness startups cite her as a foundational case study in creative resilience, billing her story as a roadmap for employees navigating high-pressure roles in tech and finance. Her trails blaze in boardrooms and co-working spaces as much as in comedy clubs and therapy offices. Through all these iterations, the essence of her secret endures, that beneath every loud laugh, shadows may linger, and only by acknowledging underlying pain can true healing begin. Phyllis Diller's lifelong strategy, translating private anguish into public artistry, remains a masterclass in embracing contradiction. She showed us that one could be both comedian and sufferer, both entertainer and advocate, both a forged public figure and a fragile human being. Phyllis Diller's hidden battle isn't merely a historical footnote. It remains a living force propelling ongoing change across entertainment, mental health care, and cultural attitudes toward vulnerability. In recent years, stand-up stages have blossomed with comedians who cite her as their touchstone, not just for her fearless barbs, but for her unspoken defiance against an inner storm. At festivals like Just for Laughs and Edinburgh Fringe, panels titled Diller's Legacy, Comedy as Medicine convene scholars, health professionals, and performers to debate how humor can future-proof emotional resilience. Beyond laughter, these gatherings propose concrete interventions, integrating joke writing exercises into CBT sessions, developing community improv troupes as peer support groups, and training therapists to recognize comedic timing as a marker of coping capacity. In this way, Phyllis's once private duel with depression has ignited fresh strategies that blend creative expression with clinical practice. The Smile and Soar Foundation, established in her wake, has grown into a global network supporting artists and non-artists alike. Annual galas in New York, London, and Sydney bring together donors, survivors, and celebrities to celebrate breakthroughs in treatments and share stories of laughter-led redemption. Many grants fund Laugh Labs at performing arts schools, where students learn both comedy craft and self-care rituals, journaling alongside joke outlines, for instance, or practicing staged micro-confessions to desensitize anxiety around sharing personal truth. Corporate sponsors now underwrite mental health fellowships in entertainment law, ensuring creatives have legal safety nets when they speak openly about personal challenges. Each initiative carries echoes of Phyllis's own careful balancing act, presenting joy to the world while demanding resources to stay afloat behind the scenes. Beyond the stage, her secret struggle has spurred policy debates and legislative efforts. Lawmakers in California and New York have referenced her behind the laughter special when drafting bills mandating mental health coverage for performers and crew under state health plans. Unions representing actors and authors now negotiate contracts that guarantee backstage counseling and guaranteed rest periods, protections once unimaginable in a business built on long hours and unpredictable gig schedules. In academic journals, articles analyze how her public reveal changed compliance attitudes among production companies. Conference papers propose frameworks for entertainment wellness compliance, ensuring that no comedian risks her own stability for the sake of a punchline. In this policy realm, Phyllis's once secret pain has become a catalyst for institutional safeguards. In popular culture, her ethos persists in unexpected corners. Social media movements like #LaughThroughIt invite users to post short humorous riffs paired with honest reflections on daily struggles. Podcasts dedicated to performers in recovery often begin episodes by playing a clip of Phyllis's iconic cackle followed by a discussion of modern parallels. How today's comics navigate Twitter vitriol or streaming era burnout. Even in advertising, brands tap the archetype she embodied, the glamorous warrior clown who refuses to surrender to despair. Wellness apps now offer Diller Mode, a setting that pairs daily mood checks with curated one-line jokes to break through low moods. Through these digital artifacts, her model of private pain fueling public art endures in virtual form. Academia continues to mine her diaries for fresh insights. Recent dissertations explore the neurobiology of laughter, referencing her mood logs to correlate audience responses with self-reported anxiety levels. Public health researchers have incorporated her data into studies on sleep disorder prevalence among touring artists, while media studies courses examine how her multi-decade silence around mental health mirrors broader societal taboos. Graduate seminars debate the ethics of posthumous disclosure. Was it right to publish her personal journals? These debates mirror the boundary Phyllis herself navigated, weighing the benefits of honesty against the costs of exposure. The very questions scholars ask now, about consent, narrative ownership, and the healing power of confession, reflect the paradoxes she embodied. Looking ahead, the story Phyllis Diller once kept hidden continues to evolve. New creative retreats offer Diller workshops, combining stand-up coaching with guided trauma release techniques inspired by her therapeutic regimens. Global streaming platforms commission docuseries tracing her influence on digital-age comics who live-stream from their bedrooms, forging intimate bonds with audiences as she did in sold-out theaters. Meanwhile, her foundation funds virtual, reality simulations that allow mental health trainees to practice empathic listening with avatars modeled on her own experiences. These programs underscore that her silent battles were not just personal struggles, but seedbeds for innovation. As long as artists and audiences seek to turn adversity into alchemy, her hidden truth will guide future breakthrough. Now, as the curtain closes on her extraordinary life, we recognize how Phyllis Diller redefined resilience with unstoppable laughter infectious. Her hidden battle against clinical depression and anxiety inspired countless comedians to speak freely about mental health and authenticity. Often audiences today find solace in humor that acknowledges pain, following her example of turning sorrow into powerful shared laughter resonant. She taught us that masks can fall away gracefully and truly when courage meets a well-crafted punchline in vulnerable moments. Her secret diaries, now studied in therapy programs, reveal precise strategies for mapping mood swings alongside comedic timing. Effective, nuanced archives preserve her coded entries tracking sleep quality, pill dosages, audience reactions, and nightly fears in painful honesty. Relentless, transformative. Her groundbreaking HBO special Behind the Laughter disclosed private struggles to millions, challenging stigma with raw authenticity and heartfelt humor. Following that revelation, she founded Smile and Soar Foundation, funding impactful programs merging comedy workshops with mental health support nationwide. Today, practitioners integrate joke writing into therapy sessions, recognizing humor's role in unlocking resilience and emotional release for patients. Diverse, validated comedy festivals now include panels on mental wellness named in her honor, discussing depression prevention, anxiety management, and creative self-care. Major networks air tributes blending her classic routines with documentary clips, reminding viewers of her trailblazing role in destigmatizing depression. Mental health apps honor her legacy by offering daily punchline prompts alongside mood check-ins, encouraging self-soothing through comedic reframing. Gentle wellness retreats host Diller sessions, where participants craft personal jokes, share private struggles, and practice vulnerability in supportive communities. Collaborative, her diaries inform academic research on humor therapy, neurobiology of laughter, and the intersection of expression with emotional regulation techniques. Landmark lawsuits and policy changes cite her influence, expanding guaranteed backstage counseling and mandated downtime for performers across major unions. Her signature cackle remains an auditory icon, played as a cultural meme to punctuate moments of triumph over adversity. Installations, interactive exhibits reproduce her makeup room, complete with lavender sachets and biofeedback monitors, letting visitors experience her backstage anxiety rituals. Comedians host annual fundraisers for founder scholarships, granting emerging artists support for retreats and therapy. Honoring her mental health legacy, tribute documentaries continue to unearth new interviews and unseen footage, revealing candid confessions she never intended audiences to witness. Originally theatrical productions blend stand-up excerpts with dramatic interpretation, portraying her life as an odyssey between uproarious fame and private despair. Memorial festivals rebrand stages as Phyllis's Playground, celebrating comedy as sanctuary and mental health as healing, safety, joyous renewal. Spirit and creative schools. Instructors adopt her mood mapping methods, pairing punchline writing with self-assessment journals to foster balanced artistic growth. Holistic awards now include a Diller Impact category honoring performers who leverage humor to elevate social causes and mental well-being initiatives. Her secret remains testament that those who light up stages may harbor silent battles, and that shared laughter sparks healing. Her legacy challenges everyone to embrace vulnerability as creative fuel, teaching us that exposing fears can amplify authentic connections. Genuine. When you hear her piercing cackle, remember the woman who broke barriers by confronting inner darkness with laughter. Embracing resilience. Phyllis's truth reminds us that masks foster illusions, but authenticity demands honesty and invites others to share their stories courageously. Her hidden battle lives on wherever people choose vulnerability over perfection, turning private struggle into universal laughter-driven hope, resounding, enduring from comedy clubs to therapy rooms. Her legacy teaches that darkness can transform into guiding light and renewed shared joy. So today, take a moment to acknowledge shadows, craft a joke, share a smile, and break silence with laughter collective. Her spirit lives in every comic who finds power in self-deprecation, and every listener who laughs despite inner storms raging. Decades ago, she whispered secrets to paper, but today her legacy shouts courage from marquees, screens, and stages worldwide. Everywhere. Phyllis Diller's greatest secret was not hidden behind fame, but in her relentless refusal to let darkness define her destiny. So honor her memory by lighting laughter in dark places, forging hope from humor, and remembering that every voice matters. The secret she kept unlocked: a world where shared joy and shared pain coexist, weaving human connection through hilarious honesty. When you next see a wild wig or hear that thunderous cackle, remember the hidden pain fueling her genius. Magnificent. Her story proves that true comedy arises when laughter and tears collide, and that spirit can triumph over hidden despair. Let Phyllis Diller's hidden truth continue inspiring you to embrace imperfections and find courage in your own unspoken battles. Always carry her legacy forward. Laugh boldly, speak truth to pain, and know that every act of vulnerability can spark healing.